Okay, so in this video I'm going to be talking about my top 20 favourite films from 1989. These are all in accordance with the release dates from IMDb, and again, there's no real right or wrong to this list. These are just my 20 personal favourite films from this year. So that being said, I'm going to get into a few honourable mentions of mine from this year. So first off, first honourable mention is Dead Calm, starring Sam Neill, Nicole Kidman and Billy Zane. Absolutely really good suspenseful thriller, this one. Also got one of my favourite death scenes ever of a villain. I won't spoil it, but it's absolutely fantastic. Next up for me is John Woo's The Killer. Really good sort of violent action movie, this. Check it out if you've not seen it. Next up for me is The Cook, The Thief, His Wife and Her Lover. Really good ensemble cast with this one. Sort of like a British gangster movie. Helen Mirren and Michael Gambon play this sort of married couple, and he's the sort of head mob boss, and she ends up having an affair with someone because she doesn't really love her husband anymore, and he ends up getting revenge on him and by killing him. Just a fantastically uniquely made film. Next honourable mention for me is the film that actually won the Oscar for Best Actor, and that is My Left Foot, starring Daniel Day-Lewis. Absolutely fantastic performance from him. Won his first of 3 Oscars in the leading actor category. Just a fantastic drama. Next up for me is Brian De Palma's Casualties of War, starring Michael J. Fox and Sean Penn. Really disturbing film, this. About a group of US soldiers fighting in the Vietnam War that end up kidnapping and raping a girl from Vietnam. Absolutely disturbing film. Really hard to watch. Not a film to watch quite often. The repeat value for this is quite low, but it's one that stays with you. So pretty much Sean Penn's the main antagonist in this, who pretty much leads these other soldiers astray into raping and kidnapping this girl. And Michael J. Fox is really the only one with some actual sense that it's just morally wrong, but he can't really do anything to help because these are the kind of people that would just kill him for getting in their way. But a really tragic film, this one. Check it out if you've not seen it, but as I said, it's not got a lot of rewatch value to it. My next honourable mention is Lean On Me. Fantastic performance by Morgan Freeman in this one as the head teacher, who's pretty much brought in to help a school that's on the decline. Really good drama. Next honourable mention for me is The Burbs, starring Tom Hanks. Really good sort of creepy, quirky neighbourhood film. Directed by Joe Dante. Check it out if you've not seen it. Next up for me is the Civil War epic Glory, from Matthew Broderick, Morgan Freeman, Denzel Washington, who gives a fantastic performance in this film. I believe he won the Best Supporting Actor for this as well at the Oscars. Just an absolute war epic. Next honourable mention for me is Disney's The Little Mermaid. This sort of kicked off the start of Disney's Renaissance period in the late 80s, so carried over into the mid to late 90s. Just a fun little animated film. Next honourable mention for me is Tango and Cash. with Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell. The two of these just have absolutely great chemistry together. Sort of two police officers who are framed for a murder that they didn't commit, and end up just having to get along and work together. The start of the film, they pretty much can't stand each other, but it's just a really, really fun film. Next honourable mention for me is Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. I absolutely loved this film, but it just didn't quite make the list for me. Check it out if you've not seen it. Just this really good sort of grounded drama film. Hugely entertaining. Next up for me is Jim Jarmusch's Mystery Train. Really good anthology film, which I think he sort of perfected with the film he did a couple of years later with Night on Earth. But this one was really, really good and still worth checking out. Next honourable mention for me is Woody Allen's Crimes and Misdemeanors. Just another great drama from him. Not really much more to say about it, but one I thoroughly enjoyed. Next honourable mention for me is James Cameron's The Abyss. Probably my least favourite James Cameron film out of the ones I've seen. I haven't seen his first film, which was Piranha 2, but this is by no means an awful film. It is still really, really good. It looks absolutely spectacular, but as I say, I just don't have an emotional connection with this film the way I do with the others. Still very, very good though. Next honourable mention for me is Parenthood by Ron Howard, starring Steve Martin. Just absolutely hilarious, this film. Really, really good sort of family comedy. Stars a young Keanu Reeves in it as well. Next honourable mention for me is the adaptation of Stephen King's Pet Sematary. Really, really good film with a sort of good premise. There's this pet cemetery that if you sort of, it's believed that if you bury the animal there, it will come back to life. But it comes back to life changed, and there's a tragedy at the start of the film which sees a family's child get run over by a truck, so they quickly take the body to the cemetery to try and bring him back to life. Just a really, really good, creepy film. Next honourable mention for me is Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Considered to be pretty much the worst Star Trek movie ever. I can see that. I can see why fans really, really don't like this film. It was a bit of a letdown and a bit of a mess, but there's something about it to me that I actually quite liked and enjoyed. The Jerry Goldsmith theme comes back for this one, which was absent from the last three films. But yeah, as I said, not an awful film to me. Can see why it's the most hated, but I just didn't really feel that way about it. Next honourable mention for me is Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Just a great family film, this. The scene that probably sticks out to me the most is there's a scene involving an ant, and the outcome of that scene is just absolutely heartbreaking. This film should not be a U because of that scene. It will scar kids if they see this film. But yeah, it's just a massively fun film with a lot of good special effects. And my last honourable mention from 1989 is Ghostbusters II. This is a film I really, really like. Is it as good as the original? Absolutely not. Is it an awful film? No. There's a lot of good. There's a lot of good elements in this film that I really, really enjoyed. The special effects are great and still hold up. The main villain looks absolutely intimidating and scared me shitless as a kid watching this film. A couple of scenes in the film that actually did scare me shitless as a kid. One involving a ghost train, and the other involving the Titanic. As crazy as that sounds, if you've seen the film, those aren't really scary scenes, but they did frighten me as a kid. But the first one was such a great example of lightning in a bottle that it couldn't really work twice. They sort of just did what they could off the back of the massive success of the first film. But it's still worth checking out. It's not a train wreck of a film. There is some good still in there. But yeah, not as good as the first, but still not a bad film. Okay, so they're all my honourable mentions from 89, so I'm going to get straight into my top 20 now. And kicking off at number 20 for me is Sex, Lies and Videotape. Just this really dark sort of comedy / drama film about this sort of troubled guy who interviews women and divulges into the private life and their sexuality, and it links with a couple that he interviews and the wife's sister, and things just get sort of too in depth with what's going on. Not a film I want to go into too much in case of spoiling it, but it is just a massively well acted film as well. James Spader is absolutely fantastic in it as well. Really, really love this one. So coming up next for me at the number 19 spot is comedy film, and that is with Weird Al Yankovic, UHF. Just a really, really good sort of fun 80s comedy. Follow Weird Al's character, who sort of wants a career in television, which sort of ends up starting for him. He gets a gig sort of doing this little primetime TV show, and everyone sort of really likes it, apart from there's a few corporate bad guys who just don't really like his style and don't really want to see him succeed. But I just thought it was really, really enjoyable, really quirky, really fun sort of film. Some of the jokes in it are a little bit dated, but yeah, just massively, massively entertaining. Check it out if you've not seen it. So coming up next for me at the number 18 spot is Robin Williams in Dead Poets Society. One of the best drama films from Robin Williams as a serious actor. It sort of follows these lads at this sort of I think it's a private school, and he's brought in as a substitute teacher, and he just has such an effect on his students. He's just a massive inspiration to them, teaching them about poetry. Just an all-round engaging teacher who has such a charisma to him, and sort of teaches the boys at this school as well, you know, that there are other paths in life as to what you want to be and what you want to do. You know, you can sort of relate to one of the characters towards the end of the film, where a tragic incident takes place because of he wants to be an actor, but his father wants him to be a doctor, and it just leads to this tragedy. And yeah, it's just such an engaging and relatable film. If you've not seen it, check it out. It's one of Robin Williams' best. I absolutely loved it. So coming up next for me at the number 17 spot is pretty much as far away as you could get from Dead Poet Society, even though it's got the same word in the title, and that is Society. How to explain this film? It's one of the strangest yet best body horror films ever. It sort of follows the main character, who's this sort of like high school student, and everyone around him that he knows just starts to sort of behave oddly, and it leads to the uncovering of this massive strange cult, hence the term Society. This cult is like so unique. The higher up you are up in society, you know, the higher a member you are of this cult, which leads to just some strange, really horrific imagery towards the end of the film. The cult has this, what's the word I'm looking for? Has this sort of tradition called the shunting, and it's the strangest thing probably I've ever seen in a film. It's just so disgusting and so off-putting and stomach-churning. It's basically all the people who are members of this cult just sort of have this massive body horror orgy, is the best way to describe it. But it's so strange, you just can't take your eyes off it. It's so horrific. The effects in it are absolutely fantastic. They're almost a character in the film itself. If you've not seen it and you're into horror films, check this one out. It's a must watch. If you like films like sort of those David Cronenberg type films like Videodrome and The Fly, this is one to check out. So coming up next for me, the number 16 spot is Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse. Is it a great film? No, it's not a masterpiece by any means, but it's a great film in another sense, that it is so off the charts, crazy and entertaining. It just delivers on the entertainment value with a punch, literally. So it basically follows Patrick Swayze's character, who's a bouncer at this club called the Double Deuce. And there's this sort of not a gangster, but a sort of a feared individual who is very intimidating, who sort of wants he wants Patrick Swayze's character to come and work for him, but Patrick Swayze's just absolutely having none of it. I believe his character's name's Dalton, from what I remember when watching it. But it leads to just some great action scenes. The music in this film is absolutely great. It just has all of those 80s tropes you'd expect to see from an action film. There's action, there's music, there's nudity. It's just off the charts entertaining. Great fight sequences as well. Just so over the top. But yeah, worth checking out if you've not seen it. If it's by no means is this a masterpiece, but it is. It's just a good action film. So coming up next for me, the number 15 spot is a sequel, as 89 was pretty much the year of the sequel. As I mentioned previously, there was Ghostbusters 2. It also gave us Lethal Weapon 2, which sees Danny Glover and Mel Gibson come back, pretty much assigned to try and protect Joe Pesci's character, who we meet for the first time. And the film pretty much it's not a repeat or a rehash of the first one. It just sees these characters deal with a brand new situation, which is They basically trying to bust and capture these South African drug dealers who have diplomatic immunity, which just makes them get away with everything. But it's massively entertaining action film. Not as over the top as Roadhouse, bit more grounded in reality, but still very, very entertaining. One of the better sequels to come off of an already successful quality first film. These movies are just massively entertaining and are worth checking out if you've not seen them. So coming up next for me, at the number 14 spot, is quite an underrated film. I won't know if many people have heard of it, but it's called The Unbelievable Truth. Really good underrated drama film, this. Pretty much the premise to this is basically follow a fashion model who is just split up with her boyfriend, but she sort of builds a relationship and falls in love with this ex-convict who is pretty much he's only really seen by this town he's from, that he is this this bad person, but really he's not. He's a good person. He has to see life in a different way. I just massively enjoyed this film. It was just so underrated and so unappreciated and underseen. And I really love films like that. But yeah, as I said, if you can get hold of this one, check it out. I just thought it was thoroughly enjoyable. So the next film for me, the number 13 spot, is one of John Hughes' last films to come from the 80s, and that's with John Candy, Uncle Buck. Really good sort of family comedy, this film. So it pretty much follows these parents who have these three kids who are basically looking for a babysitter, and nobody is available to them. So as a last resort, the father tries to get in touch with his brother, Buck, played by John Candy, who they just don't really want to do. None of the parents don't like him. Children don't like him. He's just basically a bit of a bachelor and a bit of a slob. Just isn't really what they're looking for. But what makes the film is the relationship he builds with his niece and his other nephew and niece as well. Just a great well penned John Hughes film. Not as good as his other films. I don't think it's as good as Ferris Bueller's Day Off the Breakfast Club or Planes, Trains and Automobiles, but it's sort of in the same vein as 16 Candles, this for me. But just a massively fun family film. Next up for me, the number 12 spot, is the first Bill and Ted film, and that is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I've got it in a 2-pack here with Bogus Journey. I do actually have... I've pre-ordered the trilogy on Blu-ray, which also comes with the third film that came out last year, Face the Music, which I actually really enjoyed. It was a good watch. I went to see it. Was lucky enough to see it at the cinema before the cinema shut because of COVID, but... getting back to Excellent Adventure, just another fun film. Pretty much follows Bill and Ted, who aren't the brightest of students at school and are failing history, and pretty much have to complete this project in order to pass. And they stumble across a time machine which pretty much takes them anywhere and everywhere that they want to go, and they stumble across these iconic, famous people from history, such as, you know, you got Napoleon, Joan of Arc, Genghis Khan, to name but a few, and end up just compiling this great history presentation towards the end. Just massively fun, well done, entertaining film. Great performance as well by Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves. It was just great to see them as well come back, over 30 years later to do a third film. If you've not seen it, check it out. Just a really fun film. So coming up next for me at the number 11 spot is possibly one of my favourite Tom Cruise films when he was probably at the height of his powers in the late 80s and early 90s, and that is Oliver Stone's Born on the 4th of July. Not a film I loved the first time I saw it. It went over my head. I think I was way too young when I watched it, but really appreciated this when viewing all these films again from 89. So it follows Tom Cruise's character who pretty much was enlisted in the army and served in the army. Yet when he finished his service, he just completely turned against his government and in a way his country as well, because he just believed that he was constantly being lied to by his government, and he just went on to become this anti-war activist. The guy as well in the film that he portrayed in real life, after watching the film, gave Tom Cruise his Bronze Star for his performance as well. Just another really good war film from Oliver Stone. Not as good as Platoon in my book, but as I said, very good war. Not a good film about the war, but not a good war film, if that makes sense. This is more of a character study of the effects of war on one person, whereas Platoon was actually sort of set well and truly in the heart of the war. Just a really good drama. So coming up next for me at the number 10 spot is the film that actually won Best Picture this year, and that is Driving Miss Daisy. Really good, solid drama film about race and class. So we pretty much follow Jessica Tandy, who plays Miss Daisy, and her son Dan Aykroyd, and they hire basically Morgan Freeman to sort of be like a handyman and a driver for her, but she just doesn't really take too kindly to him. Doesn't really like him at first. Just doesn't really want to mix with him. They're sort of like oil and water. They don't really get on. Whereas Morgan Freeman's just happy to go with the flow, but whereas Miss Daisy really isn't. It sort of is set at a time as well when race was just as a human race, it was probably a bit embarrassing to be white. It was just didn't treat black people with the greatest respect. Really not good times as a human race, to be honest. We should have pretty much known better and done better. But this film, it exists to remind us that it happened. We can't change it, but we can learn from it and not repeat it. But yeah, it is a very good film and a very satisfying ending as well. I felt worthy of Best Picture. It really is a good film. So coming up next for me at the number 9 spot is Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner. Just a great feel-good film. So it pretty much follows Kevin Costner's character, who sort of owns this farm he lives on with his family, and he was the son of a baseball player who really loved baseball. But sort of he had a bit of an estranged relationship with his father. But out of the blue, he hears these voices on his farm, and their voices tell him, if you build it, they will come. So he basically turns his farm into a baseball field, which sort of ignites and brings spirits of deceased baseball players back to it to play games. Kevin Costner, of course, is the only one who can really see them at first, and it just leads to no one else really believing him. His family's losing money because he's building this baseball field. The bank's about to foreclose on him and take all his land, and eventually his family do see the spirits come and do believe him. And then they say to him, right, okay, that's it, you're not selling this farm. He just feels the pressure of the banks and his other family telling him, you've got to sell this farm. What you're doing is absolutely crazy. It's just so counterproductive. You're going to lose everything. We've got buyers who want to buy it off you. Take the deal. But yeah, it's just a fantastic feel-good film. You've got James Earl Jones there as well, who gives a fantastic performance. The scene as well when his father comes back to the field and he talks to him is just absolutely fantastic. Just a great feel-good drama. So coming up next for me at the number 8 spot is probably one of my favourite teen movies from the 80s, and that is Say Anything with John Cusack and Ione Skye. Pretty much two teenagers from two totally different social classes. John Cusack's a sort of student who's very average, gets by, and Ione Skye's this sort of valedictorian who's from a rich background, really successful at school, got a scholarship. And the film's basically focuses on the rise and the downfall of their relationship, really, and how John Cusack really just wants to get her back because he's absolutely in love with her. You got the great famous scene as well where he's standing outside her bedroom playing Peter Gabriel. Absolutely iconic scene from not just the film but from the 80s itself as well. Just a massively enjoyable film. Really love this one. If you love those types of films like The Breakfast Club and Pretty in Pink and Some Kind of Wonderful, it's definitely worth checking out. It kind of feels like a John Hughes film, but it's not a John Hughes film. Just really good performances as well. So coming up next for me at the number 7 spot is Rob Reiner's When Harry Met Sally. One of, if not the greatest rom-com ever made. Such a unique story and setting with these fascinating characters. The film sort of begs the questions: can men and women ever just be friends, or is there always going to be that romantic element that's going to be there? So it sort of follows Harry and Sally from the point where they meet to when they sort of break up, and how, not break up, but just go their separate ways as people, and how they serendipitously meet over the years and end up forming their relationships that way. When they meet, they're both with different people, and by the end of the film, they do end up together. But it's the characters themselves that make the film worth watching, and it's fantastically written with some fantastic dialogue, great funny scenes as well. The "I'll have what she's having" moment is absolutely iconic. But yeah, check it out if you've not seen it. Just great chemistry as well between Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan. Check it out if you've not seen it. So coming up next for me at the number 7 spot is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I've got it in a 4-pack here with the other vacation movies. This is my favourite vacation movie. It's one I watch pretty much every year. I've watched it every year at Christmas time for pretty much the past 10 years. It's not a film I grew up on. It's a film I sort of saw later on in life, in my early 20s. But yeah, absolutely love this one. It just impresses me more and more each year I watch it. It's one I really, really look forward to watching at Christmas. I might watch it a couple of times at Christmas as well, not just the once. But yeah, another great Penn John Hughes film as well. I love the soundtrack to it. I love the acting in it. Chevy Chase is absolutely great and funny. Bill Murray's brother, who plays Chevy Chase's boss as well, just absolutely great. All the characters of his family are absolutely hysterical. The cousin, who played by Randy Quaid's, absolutely hilarious. Just a great Christmas movie. Completely captures the Christmas vibe. Absolutely love it. It's one I watch each year. So check it out if you've not seen it. It's another one of those films to put in the Christmas box of films to come out each year. So coming up next for me at the number 7 spot is Heathers with Christian Slater and Winona Ryder. Really good sort of dark comedy, this film. Another film that sort of focuses on social class and the hierarchy at school and things like that, popularity. So the film pretty much focuses on this group of 4 girls, 3 of whom are called Heather, and the 4th one's called Veronica, played by Winona Ryder. And Winona Ryder sort of ends up falling for the new kid at school, who's a bit of a delinquent. He's sort of considered very dangerous, which he is. He pretty much just wants to sort of murder all the popular kids at school, which he does eventually team up with Winona, and they do actually carry out these murders, but they pass them off and cover them up to be suicides. And then the movie just leads on where the 2 characters who fall in love, pretty much, Winona and Christian Slater, they just sort of like end up hating each other. Like, it's just not the path they want to go down. But yeah, I absolutely adored it. It's another film, yet again, that I did not like the first time I saw it. But watching it again, the film just has a charm that grows on you and keeps you coming back for rewatches. It's just a great fun 80s high school movie. So coming up next for me at the number 4 spot is Timothy Dalton's second and final outing as James Bond in License to Kill. License to Kill is my all-time favourite James Bond film, hands down. I know that is an unpopular opinion. Is License to Kill the best James Bond film? In my opinion, no. But it is my favourite James Bond film. There is a difference between best and favourite. I personally think the best James Bond film is Goldfinger, but my favourite is License to Kill. This film just sees James Bond go rogue, which is something we'd never seen before in any of the films. It tells a tale of revenge for one of James's best friends, Felix Leiter, who suffers a tragedy at the start of the film against this by this drug lord. It's the most violent James Bond film we've ever got. Two scenes in this particularly really shocked me as a kid. There's one involving pretty much a compressed chamber, and another scene towards the end of the film involving this sort of cocaine crusher. Yeah, absolutely fantastic film. Both the Bond women in this film as well are absolutely stunning. Both beautiful women. Just a fantastic Bond film. The theme as well by Gladys Knight, which I believe she sort of didn't really want to perform because the title of the song is License to Kill, but I believe she was like discovered a religion later on in her life, and she sort of became like this newborn Christian, and the connotations of the song weren't really something she was interested in. But as you know, hats off to her, she sucked it up and did the performance, and the song's absolutely great. It's great to see Q on the field as well, because Q is really more sort of laboratory and office based. But it's great to see him helping out Bond in the field as well. This great tale of Bond, which just is different from all the others. Whereas all the others is sort of Bond's on a mission and has to complete the mission. This is Bond out on his own, going rogue. He's been told to turn in his license, but he goes on the run and becomes a fugitive. It's classic 80s as well. Great soundtrack, great acting, great action. A shame that Dalton didn't get to do more with Bond. I know because of legal issues, they had to stop making the films for a couple of years, but by the time that was all ironed out, Dalton had lost interest in the role, which then went to Pierce Brosnan. But yeah, just my personal favourite James Bond film. Can't say much more than that. So coming up next for me, at the number 3 spot, is my second favourite Indiana Jones film, and that is Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. This is like a sort of direct sequel to the first film, Raiders of the Lost Ark, even though this is the third film. The second film was more of a prequel to Raiders, but this does everything a sequel should do. We get to see old characters back again. New characters are introduced. We get to see a little bit of Indiana Jones' backstory played fantastically by River Phoenix. As I said, Indiana Jones is back. Marcus is back. We get introduced to Henry Jones, played by Sean Connery. And it's basically a religious film about the search for the Holy Grail. Very, very much reminds me of Goonies, this film, in terms of its adventure. You can just see production work and the fingerprints of Spielberg are all over this film. Some creepy imagery in this as well towards the end as well, when, not to spoil it, but when someone picks the wrong grail, it leads to just some fantastic stop motion. Wonderful soundtrack as well. The score is just fantastic. Haven't talked about that too much, but the John Williams score, which is very sort of similar to his work on Superman, it's very difficult to hum those two themes back to back. But yeah, absolutely fantastic sequel. The funniest scene for me is when Indiana Jones is looking for his father and he has to sort of pretend to be a Scottish lord, and he just fails at it miserably. Great scenes as well include the chase for Henry Jones's diary, which pretty much is a map to the Holy Grail, and it inadvertently ends up in the hands of Adolf Hitler at some point, just by mistake, which is what the Nazis are looking for. He ends up autographing it and giving it back to Indiana Jones, which leads to a very, very humorous scene. Great action set pieces in this as well. The tank chase is absolutely fantastic. The boat chase in Istanbul is absolutely fantastic as well. As I said, the opening scenes with River Phoenix, really, really good and really, really memorable. The scenes in Petra in Jordan as well, absolutely great to try it, where they have to complete the 3 tasks to actually get to where the Grail's being kept. Just a great adventure film, and the Indiana Jones the Indiana Jones movies ended for me with this one. Don't even bother with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. This is the high that the series should have and did go out on for me. Great way to see out the 80s as well. Just an absolutely fantastic adventure film. So coming up at the number 2 spot for me, again, is another sequel, and that is Back to the Future Part 2. So my memories of this were, I was first made aware of this film because of the 1973 Disney film Robin Hood, which my parents taped off the TV for me before I was born for me to watch, and one of the adverts was a TV spot for Back to the Future Part 2, and I was just blown away by the visuals in it and the Alan Silvestri music in it, and I eventually managed to catch Back to the Future 2 on TV as a kid, but I only got to see the first hour or so, because I believe I was going out and running errands that day, but I managed to catch the first hour of it. And I'm glad I didn't watch the second half because I hadn't seen the first film. Looking back on it now, the second half of this film is so integral and doesn't work without you seeing the first film. It's basically the first film again, but from a completely different perspective, completely different angle. What I love about this is I love the imagination and the creativity of the universe's 2015 future. Really, really hooked me in with its creativity and its designs. I love the Cafe 80 stuff. I love Biff's grandson Griff and his bionic parts and that gang. I love Marty McFly, who's the spitting image of his son, who he has to try and convince not to take part in this burglary, which is going to basically ruin the entire McFly family. Yeah, I love the plot of Marty buying this almanac, which has all these sports results in it for the future, which he wants to sort of take back with him and win the bets to get financial gain, which is what Biff does, which I believe was actually based on Donald Trump at the time. I love that plot line as well. It just leads to just some great. This is another perfect example of a sequel not rehashing and repeating the first film. It just takes the characters and puts them in a completely different and new scenario, and we get to see them do different things, yet still be the same characters. It ends with the big cliffhanger that eventually leaded into the third film. Another massively entertaining film. But the second one for me is my personal favourite one of the trilogy. I always admire a sequel that is great when the first film is already great and can stand alone. Obviously, this sequel can't stand alone. It feels very, very much part of a planned trilogy, even though parts 2 and 3 weren't actually planned. But yeah, it's just a great, great science fiction comedy film. Great time travel movie with all these different consequences and outcomes that keeps you engaged, and it just leads into the third film brilliantly. Yeah, don't watch 2 on its own. Watch the trilogy if you've not seen it. But as I've said, 2 is my personal favourite out of the 3. So that leads me into my number 1 spot from '89, and that is Tim Burton's Batman. I absolutely love and adore this film. This film is just sewn into the fabric that is me. I can never, ever remember actually seeing this film for the first time. It's just always sort of been in my mind. I can't pinpoint an actual point in time where I remember actually sitting down and watching it for the first time. It's just always sort of been. I can't even remember a time where I hadn't seen it either. I saw it at a very, very young age. The animated series, which came a few years later, is my absolute favourite TV show of all time, which led to me watching a taped version of this film. The cast in this is absolutely fantastic. Jack Nicholson as the Joker, who gets top billing. Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne and Batman, who wasn't Batman fans' first choice, shall we say. Caused a lot of uproar and a lot of rift. But if you've seen the underrated film Clean and Sober, I think that film is why Michael Keaton got this role. Kim Basinger as well. A lot of great performances by the supporting cast as well. Great theme by Danny Elfman and a great soundtrack by Prince as well. This film brought Batman back to reality, because you had the 66 series, which was really a sort of a campy version of Batman, and really the only sort of on-screen version of Batman there was in live action. So this was a nice breath of fresh air in a way to get this sort of real gritty, grounded in reality Batman film. It sort of did first what The Dark Knight did after the Schumacher movies. It just was came at a time when it was needed. Just a completely different, fresh take on it. A complete 180 of what the sort of last incarnation did. But yeah, just the film itself has just some absolutely great, stunning moments in it for me. I love the opening scene when we first see Batman standing on top of a building and his shadow walks out. That scene always sticks with me. It's just so haunting and so fantastic. The scene as well where we see Batman and Jack Napier come face to face is just so iconic and haunting to me. The scene where Jack Napier has his accident and is with his plastic surgeon, and we just hear that laugh for the first time. The reveal of the Joker himself absolutely terrified me as a kid. Watching that scene, it just leads to the build up is so good and so well directed. I love the scene as well when the Joker is in Vicky Vale's apartment with Bruce Wayne, and the back and forth they have is absolutely fantastic. The effects in it are great with the Batmobile and the Batwing. Yeah, if you can't tell, I absolutely am in love with this film. It's probably the film I've watched the most out of every film I've seen. This is the rewatch value I've put in and invested with this film is through the roof. I absolutely love it. It's just one of those films that is just, it feels like it's a part of me. It's just always sort of existed to me. My memories of watching it for the first time, as I said, are very, very blurred. It's just always sort of been in my mind and always sort of existed. So yeah, that's why it's my personal favourite number one from '89. So that sees us out of decade of the '80s, moving into the '90s with the next video. Kicking that off with 1990, which was in fact the year I was born. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there and say thanks very much for watching, and if you feel so inclined to do so, please subscribe or like and comment, and I'm going to invite watchers of this video to please give your top films from this year and in previous videos of mine, any top films associated with that year. I'd love to see people's different opinions and different choices. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there and hopefully be back soon with my top films of 1990. Another great year. So yeah, I'm going to say thanks very much for watching and take care.